Welcome to this tutorial where we build rock, paper, scissors inside of Unity. To start out this tutorial, create a blank Unity project and then come back to this tutorial once that's finished. Now, once we have our assets imported, we can start working on the game. So what we're going to do is we're going to right-click on our hierarchy, create a UI canvas. We can just keep the name canvas, and then if we zoom out, we can see that this is our canvas. And we are going to add a panel, so it's going to be a background for this canvas. So we can right-click on the canvas, create a UI, and then a panel, and you see it just covers the whole entire back, and we can name this background panel, just so we know that this is our background. We can change the color, and we can change this alpha right here. We can lower it down to something like 40 so that you can almost see through it. And then we're going to change the so that you almost can't see it. And then we're going to add images for the rock, paper, and scissors. So we're going to right click on our canvas, create a UI image. We can name this rock image. And then for this source image inside of this image component, we're going to drag in the rock image. And then if we click R, we can zoom this up pretty big. And then we can move this down to somewhere right here. We can make the scale 3 just to make it even. And then we can duplicate this rock image, rename this to paper image, and then instead of the rock image right there, we're going to drag in the paper, and then we can just drag that a little bit away from the rock so it's the same scale. Then we can duplicate the paper image, rename this to scissors image, and we can drag in the scissors image inside the paper. So right now, you can see that we have these 3 images right here, and these will be the things you can click on to choose what you want to choose for your rock, paper, scissors game. So what we're also going to want to do is we are going to want to create a UI text mesh pro, and then you're going to get a little pop-up right here that says TMP importer. And this is just the TextMesh Pro importer so that we can use this TextMesh Pro inside of our game. You're going to want to click Import TMP Essentials, then it's going to reload your Unity editor, and it's going to give you another folder down in the Assets section of your project files, and you'll see you get a little thing right here in the console that says the TMP Essential Resources have been imported. We can clear that, and then right now we have this text. We can name this player choice text, and then we can move this to somewhere right here. We can scale this up a bit and then move it right to here. We can put the text input to nothing right now because we don't have anything for this text yet, but it's going to say something once you click on either the rock, paper, scissors. We can actually make this a bit larger by moving that down to there. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to change the font asset inside of here into this font asset right here. So in this font asset that we got, we're going to right click, create a TextMesh Pro font asset. And we'll right then create a TextMesh Pro font asset right here. And then we can use that because in here, for the font asset, if we tried to drag in this font, you see that it wouldn't work because we have to drag in a TextMesh Pro font asset. And then once we drag that in, we're going to get a few little warnings right here, and we don't need to do that because we're not going to use the underline, and that will not work with this font. But once we have this with this TextMesh Pro font, we're allowed to use this on these TextMesh Pro things. Now, to clean up our assets right here, we're going to right click on the assets folder and create a new folder. We can name this folder fonts, and we can drag in these two fonts inside of the fonts folder. We can also create a new folder. We can name this sprites, and we can drag in the rock, paper, and scissors image inside of the sprites folder. So what we're going to want to do also is we're going to create something for the AI choice that's going to be the player that's playing against the player who's playing this game. So inside the canvas, we can right click, create a UI image, and we can name this image AI choice, and this is going to be the choice of the AI. We can change the scale to 3 right now, and this is just a white square for right now. But what we're going to want to what's going to happen is that we are going to the AI is going to choose one of these sprites and put them right there. So right now we can just turn off the image on this game object right now, and it will turn back on once you choose one of these things to play. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to right click on our canvas again, create a UI and a button. And then what this button's going to do, and this is going to be the button that you are going to click when you want to actually play the rock, paper, scissors game. This button is going to trigger the AI to make a decision on what rock, paper, or scissors it wants to choose, and then it's going to lock in your decision. So what we can do is we can make this button just a bit bigger, and then if we drop down this button, we get a text right here. We can go to our fonts, drag in our new font that we have, and we can change the text input to something like play. Maybe we want to scale this. Maybe we'll scale this button down just a bit, and to something like 2.5 for each of the axes. And then right now this button isn't going to do anything because we haven't set it to do anything yet, but that is just for right now. What we're going to want to do also is we're going to create another UI text. We can name this win text, and this is just going to display whether the player wins or not. So we can drag it over to here. We can make it a bit bigger. We can realign it to something like this right here, so it aligns in the corner. We can change the font to our new font asset, and we can just make the text input to nothing, because we will change this once we get an input and the AI gets an input. We also are going to have a button that is going to reset the game so you can play it again. So if we right click on the canvas, we can do a UI button. We can name this reset game button. And then inside of this text, if we drag this over to here, we can change the text to play again. And this is going to appear once you have played this game. And then we can change the text of this button. We can change the text of this button to play again. And then we can move this button all the way up to the corner right here. We can size it up. And then we can change the font asset to this font that we have. And then we're going to right now turn off this button because it's not going to be, you're not going to be able to want to see it before you play. You're going to play and then you can reset the game once you've seen if you've won or not. So we can go to our assets folder and we can create a new folder, and we can name this scripts. This will have all of our C# scripts in it. So if we go into this folder, we can create a C# script, and we can name this script. We can name this script player choose, and this is going to be the script that sees what the player wants to choose, whether it's rock, paper, or scissors. And then we're going to create another script to have the AI have a choice, and then we can see whether the player wins, they tie, or the AI wins. So we can open up this script inside of your choice of code editor, and once we get into our code editor, we can delete the update and start methods because we won't need them right now. And what we're going to want to create is we're going to create a public sprites, and this is going to be a list. This is going to be a list of sprites, and we can name this sprites to choose from, because this is going to be the list that we choose from, that we want to do, either rock, paper, or scissors. And then we're going to create a public button, and this button will be called rock button. We can also create another public button. This is going to be the paper button. And then we're going to create another public button, and this is going to be the scissors button. This is all three buttons that we have that are going to be the buttons that you're going to click on to see if you want rock, paper, or scissors. So we're going to create a few public methods. This first is going to be a public void, and this method is going to be called rock button. And this method will be called if the rock button has been pressed. And then what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create a public integer, and we can name this integer player choose, and this will be the rock, paper, or scissors that the player has chosen. And for right now, we can set this player choose, we can set this equal to -1, just so that it's not equal to anything when we start this game. So when you click on the rock button, we're going to set the player choose, we're going to set this equal to 0. And then up at the top, we can write this line that will help us not forget that what we're wanting to do. And we can put these two dashes before it just so that it's a comment. And then we can write 0 is rock, because the 0 in player choose would be the rock. 1 is paper, and then 2 is scissors. And then this just helps remind us that since we're choosing rock, we're going to set player choose equal to 0. And then we can create another public void, and then we'll name this paper button. And then we're going to set player choose to be equal to 1, because from up here, 1 is equal to paper. And then we're going to create another public void, and we're going to name this scissors button. And inside of this method, we're going to set player choose, we're going to set this equal to 2. So now, whenever we click on any of these buttons, we will set the player chosen to the one that the player actually chose. But then we're going to want to update the text that shows the player what the player actually chose. So let's create a public text mesh pro UGUI. It's a UGUI. We can name this player choose text, and this is just the text that what the player has chosen. And then what we can do inside of this public void rock button, we can set player choose text dot text. We can set this equal to you chose rock. And then we can set the player choice text dot text in the paper button to you chose paper. And then we can set the player choose text dot text inside of the scissors button. We can set this equal to you chose scissors, because Now, when we press all of these buttons, it's going to set the button inside of this code to what the button actually is, and then it's going to give it a visual reminder to the player of what the player actually chose. And now what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to turn all of these buttons off so the player won't be able to remake his decision or go back and choose a different one. So what we can do is past here, we can do rock button dot game object dot set active, and we're going to set this to false. And this just sets the game object of the rock button, and it's just setting it to false. And then on the same line, just so we don't take up way too much code lines, we can change the paper button dot game object dot set active, and we're going to set this to false too. And then finally, we're also going to do this for the scissors button. So we can do scissors button dot game object dot set active. We're going to set this to false. And then finally, so we don't have to type all of that again, we can actually just copy and paste this into the end of all of these methods right here. So right now, we are just setting all of these things so that whenever we push the button, it sets the player to 0. It sets all of these to be false, and it gives the player a reminder of what he chose, and then it gives us a code. So we can go back into our Unity editor, and then once it finally compiles, we can add this to something up here inside of this canvas so that we can add all of these sprites to it so that the player will know that we can have rock, paper, and scissors, and then we can add all of these so that it'll be able to change each thing accordingly inside of the Unity editor. Now once we're back in here, we can right click on this canvas and we can create an empty, and we can just name this player choose, and this is just going to have this player choose on inside of it. And then in the sprites to choose from, we can go into our sprites. We can right here we can drag in the rock first because rock is 0, then paper, and then finally scissors because scissors is last, scissors is 2. And then rock, paper, and scissors buttons, what we're going to have to do first is we're going to have to add button components to each of these. So we can go to the rock and we can add the component, and we can add a button component. And then we can just keep all this the same because we'll change them later once we're changing up the buttons of here. So once we add these to all rock, paper, and scissors images, we're going to add a button to them. We can go back into the player choose, drag in the rock button for the rock, paper for the paper button, and then the scissors for the scissors. And then the player choose text, that's right here, this the player choice text. So we can go to the player choose, we're going to drag in the player choice text. So what we can do is we can save this up and we can hit play, and then we can see if our game is working so far. What we'll be able to do is we'll be able to click on this, the other buttons will turn off, and it will show us what we actually clicked, and will give us a visual reminder so that when we click the play, we can see what the AI chose, and then see if we won, lost, or if we tied with the AI, which we will be creating next after we finish the player choose. So right now, if we just click this, it doesn't do anything right yet, and that is because we forgot one important thing. We forgot to add the buttons, the button part of the button. So right here in the rock image, down here at the button, on click, we can click add down here and then subtract because I had one more. And then we can drag in this player choose in this game object spot, and then down here in this no function, just drop down, we can go to the player choose, and then right here, since this is the rock button, we can go to the rock button and click that. And this will just, whenever we click this, it will do this method, which is very nice for doing things like buttons. So we have the rock, and that's done. So paper, if we click and add in here, drag in player choose, we go to the player choose, and then we click the paper button in the drop down below. And then we can go to scissors. If we click add, drag in player choose, go to player choose, and then click scissors. And then all of these other methods, these are just other things that are manually built into Unity so that it can just send a few things that we don't actually need to use right now. So once we have all of these things done, we can save up our game, and then we can click play again. And now, once the game has fully loaded, we should be able to click on each and every single one of these buttons. The other buttons should turn off, and then this right here will give us a visual reminder, just like it should have the last time we played, but we forgot to add the rock, paper, and scissors to this, to the certain game objects that they were supposed to go onto. So now that we're in play mode, if we click this, it says you chose paper, and that's right, I did choose paper. Since we don't have the reset right now, we actually can't do anything. This play button doesn't do anything right now, but we can change that later. So that seems to be working just fine. So if we go into our scene, if we go into our scripts, we can right click, create another C# script. We can name this AI choose, and this is going to be the script that the AI chooses what it wants to choose, either rock, paper, or scissors. And once we're in our coding editor, we can delete the start and update methods because we're not going to need them right now. We can create a public sprite list again, and this is going to be called we can name this sprites right here. And then this is going to hold our rock, paper, and scissors sprites. We can have a public integer, and we can name this AI choose, and this will be the number that the AI has chosen right now. We can set this to -1, just like we set for the player choose. And then if we remember that 0 is rock, 1 is paper, and 2 is scissors, we can see that we also set player choose to -1 just so it doesn't mess up and do anything that it shouldn't do very early. So what we're going to do now is we're going to create a public void, and this is going to be the play button. This is going to be the method that we attach to the play button so that the AI would choose what sprite to attach to its thing. So what we can do is we can get a public image, and then inside this public image we can name this AI image. And then right now it's giving us an error, and that's because we have to be using Unity Engine UI. Once we have that added, this image, we will not get an error anymore. And inside of this, we can set AI choose. We can set this to random.range, and then this range will look for two things. So the minimum and the maximum. We can set the minimum to 0, which is rock, and then we can set this to sprites.length. And then this is just the amount of the thing we have in the list right here. So let's say we have 3 things, so it will look for a number between 0 and the amount of things inside of this list. And then that will be the thing that we have, and if we remember that we have these little numbers that we set to the certain rock, paper, and scissors. So what we can do is we can set the, and actually before this, what we'll want to do is we're going to want to set the AI image .game object .set active. We can set active, and we can set this to true because if you remember, we deactivated this game object in the beginning because there was no image in it. So we can set this to true, and we're going to do the AI image dot again, and we can do dot sprite on this to get this sprite, and we can set this equal to sprites, and then inside of this we can do square brackets and say AI choose, and then what this will do is we'll change the sprite to a sprite in this list on the AI choose number. So let's say the AI chooses 1. If we have rock, paper, and scissors in here, 1 would be paper, so it will set this sprite to paper. And that's what we want right now. So if we go back into here, we can add this AI choose to we can add this to the AI choice game object in there. So now once we get back into our Unity editor, we can go to this AI choice right here, and we can see that this game object is turned off. We can add this AI choose game object, this script, right to it, and it's going to look for a few things. So the AI image, we can just drag in this image on the AI, and then for the sprites, we will go to our sprites. We will drag in rock first because rock is 0, paper second because paper is 1, and then scissors next because scissors is 2. So you can see that we have 3 things right in there. So now what we're going to want to do is we will go to this button right here that we can actually name play button instead of just button. We will go down to the bottom, add something on this on click. We can drag in the AI choose for this game object right here, and for the function we can do AI choose dot play button. So now when we click play, it will have something up there. So now what we're going to want to do is we can click play, and then we'll see that we know this is working because we just tried that, and then we'll see if our play button is working because then the AI will choose something. It will choose either rock, paper, or scissors, and then we can get on to seeing if the player actually won or not. So what we can do once we get into play mode right here, we can just check this one more time. So you can see we can hover over all of these. Let's say I want to choose rock, and it says you chose rock. That's true. So if I click play, you can see that nothing is happening. And the reason for that is that if you go back into this play, what we can do is we can go back to this play button, and then we can see that it has this right here, this play button. If we go back to our AI choice, it has these sprites, and maybe we can just turn on this image right here. So, and then we can check inside of our script that if this is alright, it sets the sprite to AI choose, and it chooses a random one. So once we get back into play mode, you can see that you chose scissors. If we click play, then this just changes to scissors, which is good. And then it seemed all we had to do was just turn back on the image component in this AI choice. See, we just turn this back on. See, it's just a square, but that's okay for right now. So what we can do is we can go back into our script here, and then now we're going to see if the player wins, the AI wins, or they tie. So we can create another public, we can make this a player choose, and we can name this player choose. And this is just going to be a reference to this script right here so that we can get the variables inside of it. So now we're going to do some if statements. So if the AI choose is equal to the player choose, so this is the reference to this dot player choice, and then if we go right here, you can see this is player choose. We can set this equal if this is equal to player choose. So if these two are equal, so if rock versus rock, paper versus paper, or scissors versus scissors, that means it's a tie. So what we can do is we're going to set the win text to tie, but we need the win text first. So we can get a public text mesh pro UGUI. We can name this we can name this win text. And then what we'll do inside of here, we'll set win text dot text. We can set this equal to you tied. And then we can add an exclamation point at the end just for fun. So if they're the same, so rock versus rock, paper versus paper, or scissors versus scissors, they tie. So now we're going to do if the AI wins. So if AI choose is equal to 0, and we can go right here. So the if the AI chooses rock, if the player is scissors, then the AI wins. So if AI choose is 0 and player choose dot player choose is equal to 2, then the AI wins. So we can do an OR, which is with these two lines. So or AI choose is equal to 1. And if we go right here, if 1 is paper, what beats paper? Or paper beats rock. So if AI choose is equal to 1 and player choose dot player choose is equal to 0, then the AI wins. Or AI choose is equal to 2 and player choose dot player choose is equal to 1. We can just check this right here. So that if scissors beats paper. So we can, if any of these are true, we can set win text dot text to be equal to you lost. And then this means the AI wins. So now we're going to do this for the player. So we can do another if statement. If player choose dot player choose is equal to 0 and AI choose is equal to, so rock, what beats rock, rock beats scissors. So this is basically the same exact thing as this, is equal to 2. Or player choose dot player choose is equal to 1 and AI choice is equal to 0. We can just check this right here. Does paper beat rock? That is true. And then I'm getting an error right here because I spelled this wrong, so it's actually AI choose. And then another or, and then if, this is the final one, if player choose is equal to 2 and AI choose is equal to 1. Player choose dot player choose is equal to 2, and then AI choose is equal to 1. And then we can just check that right here. Does scissors beat paper? That is true. So if any of these are true, we can set the win text dot text, and then this will be equal to you won. So that's basically it, because we have all of this. And now what we're going to want to do is we're going to do the reset so that we can check if all of these are true. So we can create a public button, and we'll name this reset button. And then let's create another public void, and this will be the method that the reset button calls if it's true. So the public void, we can name this reset button. And then once we're done with all of this, we can actually set the reset button to be true so that you will be able to reset the game. So reset button dot game object dot set active. We're going to set this to true so that once you see that if you've won, lost, or tied, you will be able to replay the game. So if we reset, we're going to want to reset everything back to false or 0 or stuff. So we can set AI choose back to -1. We can set player choose dot player choose. We can set this equal to -1. We're going to want to turn back on all of the buttons. So you can do player choose dot rock button dot game object dot set active. And then we're going to set this to true again. And then just so we don't have to type this out every single time, we can just copy and paste this 2 more times. And instead of rock button, we can write paper button and then scissors button, just so we don't have to type all of that out all again. So now we're setting all of these things back to true. And then we can set all of the texts back to nothing. So we can set win text dot text. We can set this equal to nothing. And then inside of player choose, we see this player choose text. We can set that to nothing too. So if we do player choose dot player choose text dot text, we can set this equal to nothing too. And then once you click this button, you shouldn't be able to click it again. So we can actually just set the reset button dot game object dot set active. And we're going to set this to be false, just so that you cannot reset this again and again and again. So we can go back into our Unity editor, and once it finally compiles, we should be able to see that our game should be fully working unless we have any errors. So we should be able to click this, it will say us what we have. If we click play, it will do this, and it will say either we won, lost, or tied, and then we'll be able to reset just to check if we won, lost, or tied, if that's all working correctly. Once the Unity editor compiles, we can go back to AI choose. We're going to have to set a few more variables inside of the editor. So this right here, it's going to look for the player choose, win text, and reset button. We can drag in the reset button. We can drag in the win text, and we can drag in the player choose, which is right there. We can drag in that. And then if we save up our game, when we click the play button, we should be able to see that our game is fully working. Once we're finally inside play mode, you can see that we can hover over these things. If we click paper, it says you chose paper. We click play, this AI choose says paper, and it says you tied, which is true. If we click play again, you can see that nothing's happening, and that's because we haven't assigned the play again button inside of the Unity editor. So this reset game, we can click add to right here, drag in the AI choose, and then inside of the function, we can do the AI choose dot reset button, and that makes sure that now once we click that button, it will reset everything back to false or true or whatever it originally was, that we can play the game again and again without it lagging over to the different ones each time, so that we can choose a different one and that the AI chooses a different one every single time. So now we can just click, let's say rock, you chose rock, we click play, rock, we tied. We click play again, we can see that we're going to need to change that. But if we click paper, scissors, you chose scissors, it says you chose rock and we lost. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to, down here in the reset button, we're going to want to set the AI image back to nothing again. So right here, before we set this reset button to false, we're going to do the AI image dot sprite, and we're going to set this equal to null, which is just basically nothing, so that it will go back to this square right here, so that we won't see what the AI is actually going to choose in advance. Once we're back inside the Unity editor, we can click play, and then we shall be able to see that our game is finally working now that we just fixed that minor error that we were able to see the AI choice before we chose our choice. once we're in play mode, we can see that this works. We can choose scissors. We click play. Scissors beats paper. We did win. If we click play again, that changes back to there. We choose rock. We tied because rock and rock tie. If we choose paper, we tie again. And then we can just keep on like changing, seeing if this is the right rock. Paper beats rock, true. Paper, scissors beats paper, that is true. Scissors, rock beats scissors, that's true. So now that we can see that all of this is now working, now that means that we are finished with this tutorial. Thank you for following along through this tutorial. If you like this tutorial, please give our channel a like and a subscribe because it really helps out a ton. And also, if you made this game, comment down in the comment section below.